That's correct. All right, I called the April 6th, 2026 City Council work session to order at 6:01. So on the agenda today, we have URA Grant Program. So I'm gonna turn this over to Roland.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, councilors. We'll take a moment to get the presentation up on screen here for everyone to see. And then we will start off with a discussion about our URA grant program possibilities for downtown North Plains. Bill, whenever you're ready, we can go to the next slide. Okay, starting off with a bit of framing for our discussion, I want to go over a few key boundaries that we have when we're talking about future programs, grants, and funding opportunities. First is how funding is outlined in our urban renewal plan. We have 4 different mechanisms that are specifically called out in the plan. Those being rehabilitation and redevelopment grants or loans, new development grants or loans, funding in the form of technical assistance, and commercial facade improvement loans. And a bit of a caveat here, when we say grants, that can look like outright grants or grants with match. When we say loans, that can look like low interest loans, no interest loans, partial forgiveness loans, full forgiveness loans. So those terms are not specifically defined within our urban renewal plan, so we have some breadth there to work with. Slide, please. Okay, and here's our downtown focus area. I've called out some of our opportunities and constraints to narrow down our focus to a few key areas. Opportunities working in downtown are, of course, our historic resources, the fact that we have a really established business community down there. It's a compact footprint. We aren't dealing with a sprawling district. And we have an adopted downtown improvement plan as of 2023. So that is a nice modern document that you all can work off of when developing programs. Some of the constraints, we have some poorly maintained buildings that comes in hand with that historic character. Small parcels. It's easy to develop a big greenfield parcel with no existing complications on it. Working with these small parcels can sometimes mean that our business owners and our property owners need to be creative. And then there's the high risk perception by investors. Small downtowns in small cities, they don't have a huge market. We don't have, 10,000 rooftops that we're working with when people are looking at investing in our community. So we have to be thoughtful about how we fund and support our businesses. Slide, please. And lastly, something I really want to highlight throughout this discussion, a really important bound, is our program targets. And the 2 that we talk about a lot as staff is catalytic or transformative. And when we're looking at what we fund, we want something to be catalytic. So bringing in new business, something that we don't have, or a new type of development that we don't have, new uses that we don't have, and at a different scale. Larger scale than what we currently have. And then transformative, so taking an existing business that hasn't been able to expand for a very long time and giving them that leg up to expand their business or to evolve their business into something that it better suits the current time and place. And then program goals. We have 3 goals here listed out from the urban renewal plan. Those being promoting a mix of uses oriented to pedestrians, providing broader, more diverse goods and services, and increasing employment and business activities. And those are directly from our URA plan and should be at the core of any programs that you as a board develop. Bill, please. Okay, now into some concepts that we've started developing within the office. Pre-development grants are pretty common in the urban renewal and granting space. This aligns with our urban renewal plan project F3. And it is a smaller grant, usually around $1,000 to $5,000, and on a short timeline, 1 to 3 months. So these are under the catalytic category of grants. We're going to assess project feasibility, and then generate plans to improve property. So we're going from something or from nothing to something with these grants. Some example programs, Beaverton has a very robust pre-development grant program with multiple different steps. Lincoln City has a more streamlined program, pre-development assistance, and Milwaukee has a pre-development assistance grant program as well. That's Milwaukee and Oregon, not Wisconsin. These are grants that are really useful for property owners who have properties that maybe are small or oddly shaped. Properties with existing buildings on them that don't maybe make sense for an immediate use to go into. So anyone who has a lot of questions about what do I do with my property, this is gonna be a great resource for them. Slide, please. Facade improvement loans. This aligns with Project F4 in the urban renewal plan. And this is the next step up in funding, anywhere between about $2,500 to $20,000 is the range we're looking at. With the caveat that with larger cities, if you go looking at something like Portland or Eugene or Bend, they might have programs that go much higher for improvements because they are so much larger. It's a midterm timeline, 3 to 6 months is about what you would expect for one of these projects. And the goal is what it says on the label there, improving facade aesthetics and unifying that downtown environment, increasing window area, which is great for pedestrian engagement and advertising, installing awnings. Once again, we're really hitting that pedestrian friendliness, keeping people in downtown for longer. Some example programs, Forest Grove has a storefront improvement grant program that we are really looking at as a neighbor. Redmond has a very strong and long-running facade rehabilitation grant program. And then Lincoln City, once again, another program that's well-established. And this is going to be really helpful, especially for our established businesses who maybe have been operating here a long time, have a lot of connections with the community, but haven't been able to take that next step to improving their business. Bill, slide, please. And then our last category, building improvement grants and loans. This aligns with Project F1, and the funding amount is the highest of the three options here. 10,000 to 50,000. Once again, in those larger cities, you can see these projects balloon up into the hundreds of thousands. This is gonna be longer. I've thrown up the timeline 3 to 9 months, but because these can be sometimes comprehensive or phased projects that we have property and business owners working on, that can extend further. And the goal here is really to assist property and business owners in bringing buildings up to code, safety, fire and life safety, building codes, health codes for especially our food service businesses, and then improving functionality of the space. So if a business has currently capacity to have 25 patrons in their space, but they know they can renovate to accommodate 50, that's transformative. That's great. If they are currently able to do bakery offerings by purchasing from another bakery and just having them for sale in their shop, but they want to come in and maybe do some of the baking themselves, or add coffee to their offerings and they need to do some major renovations, that's a great thing for this building improvements. Some example programs, Beaverton has a very robust program, and Forest Grove does as well. A little bit further down the valley, downtown Corvallis has a unique approach. It's a revolving loan fund. Not the most common, but seems to be very effective for them down there. Bill, if you will. So targets, as we went through those three programs, I focused on tailoring them to three sub-targets of our urban renewal plan goals. Historic preservation, all three of those programs can be used in accompaniment with historic preservation funds from other programs, state programs, or even national. Facade improvement being the standout there for unifying downtown character or restoring historic facades. Business retention, pre-development can be used also for business expansion. So if somebody has a site that has a building on it, but they've got an extra 2,500 feet of area that's not being used. Pre-development could help them figure out how to utilize that space better. And then building improvement obviously can help a lot of our businesses who maybe haven't been able to take that next step. And then visitor friendliness, this is probably topic number one when we talk about downtown function and supporting downtown business, how to keep those people walking downtown, staying downtown, dining, and really keeping that foot traffic up. So facade improvement is going to be key here, and building improvement, making sure that those businesses are attractive to people who are walking, cycling, driving downtown. Bill, target or slide please. And then a little bit of housekeeping here on program implementation. Your role as URA board will be to provide direction to staff as to which programs you're interested in pursuing, what implementation would look like for those programs, which goals or targets you want to focus on primarily, and then what metrics of success you want to measure. How do you want us to focus these programs? Staff will take your direction, develop a program, develop selection criteria, and refine the funding mechanism. And then we can also bring in consultant experts to take this base level program, perform economic feasibility analysis, and really take those programs to the next level, provide us some extra information on that front. And then once we have a program developed, administration is relatively simple and straightforward. We'll advertise the program, accept applications, and then we send it to Economic Development Commission to review applications, interview the applicants, and ultimately make those recommendations to staff on whether to fund, or if they have recommendations about less or more funding for a particular project. And then staff will carry out the grant and monitor progress, collect data, and report back to the URA board on how those programs are operating. Bill, if you would. And that will conclude my part of the presentation tonight. I'm open for questions.
Okay, Counselor. Counselor.
Counselor Weber, excellent information. Am I correct? There's no reason why we can't use this for the whole URA boundary. It doesn't have to be confined just to downtown. We can expand this to the whole Glencoe area, correct?
That is correct. We can target this to specific areas. We can also do a whole plan area program.
Yeah, my only thought would be we don't have a huge number of businesses, so it might make sense because this is so well defined. But we could talk about it. Okay.
Other questions, comments?
Do you mind flipping back to, you had a slide with all the goals or yes, thank you. I think it was that. Thank you. I personally love this because it gives a really good strategic roadmap, in my opinion. I think that if I were to prioritize the three, I would choose the second pillar or work stream, in particular as a way to focus. And maybe if I were to order this personally in priority, I would go one, I would go business retention, visitor friendliness, and then of course, historic preservation maybe, although it would be hard to pick, but I think number one would be business retention. If we had a fund that we needed to allocate money towards, that's what I would personally do, but there's many ways that we could prioritize.
Thank you for the feedback.
Counselor Warrington.
Yes, thank you. Can we just step back for one moment? I really would like to know what the core reason for this deck is. Is this a presentation for informational purposes? So nothing really has been started. You're just sharing so we have an understanding of what can happen in the future. Or is this an educational deck that's telling us what you're spending money on currently, and you're just informing us on your budgetary spending?
So, Counselor, the URA board last year requested staff put this together to expand the programs from, because right now we have food and beverage only. what we asked for was a larger scope and staff recommendations, and potentially a consultant to help form what new types of programs. So what staff is doing here is coming back to us with the work that they've done and saying, this is what we have, you know, what do you like, what do you not like, what else do you want? And then so they can go and finish the work and come back to us with a finalized work product. The intent at the time and theoretically going forward is to attract additional businesses to the downtown and political opportunity areas, which are our current URA boundaries, through grants and other programs. So we're just trying to expand the scope of what the URA is the programs currently available to it to allow staff to attract more businesses. Does that make sense?
Yes. So on slide 9, our takeaway from this is we're trying to prioritize this in this meeting now to determine what our next steps are. Is that what you're asking of us?
I'll let you take that.
Yes, so if the URA board can provide feedback on which programs they find most promising and which targets or goals they want to pursue most strongly, that is valuable information for staff.
Thank you.
Any comments?
Counselor Redding here. I love what you've come up with, Rowan. I think it's great. My biggest questions are, ensuring these programs are accessible and applied consistently across all businesses, and that there is, eligibility standards, scoring criteria, and prioritization, and making sure is that to come if we decide to go with these?
Sorry, could you repeat the last part of your question?
Will we come up with eligibility standards, scoring criteria, and prioritization if we move forward? And then how are we gonna make sure that that's fair?
Yes, so that would be part of the programmatic formation. So once we decide sort of the umbrella of what the program is going to look like, the broad goals and target area such as facade restoration or business improvement, then staff will prepare preliminarily what criteria and the eligibility, which would then be reviewed for conformance with the board's expectations for the program. And then as applications are accepted, there'll be a standardized application form with demographic information, business information, and then options for long form response as we have for the current tenant improvement program. And then that will be reviewed both by staff and by the Economic Development Commission for conformance with the program goals, targets, criteria. So you'll have multiple reviewing bodies there. And we will ultimately be tracking which projects are funded, which projects aren't funded, and the results.
Thank you.
Of course. Board. Comments, thoughts? No. Counselor, sorry, what's your new name? Ugarte, thank you. I'll write it down.
Councilor Ugarte, I would just echo, I am aligned with Councilor Hagedorn's thoughts of really prioritizing business retention. My only question for you, Rowan, is, once we've come to a consensus in a direction, what's the timeline to implement this?
I actually might defer to Bill on timeline, as it's going to probably depend on a couple of our other projects that are in the air as well.
Thank you, Rowan. Rowan was very deliberate in sharing examples of programs elsewhere. So for a lot of what we're talking about here, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. That's how the new food service tenant improvement program works, is we looked at Hillsboroughs and Beavertons and then adapted it based on being a smaller community with, different issues in North Plains versus bigger cities. So we adapted. So it'd be the same approach based on what we hear from you, is we would go out and identify best in class examples of what we hear you would like to accomplish, and then we would adapt for North Plains. So that wouldn't be a terribly, 2-3 months at most. Basically, it wouldn't, in terms of city work time, it's not that long.
Counselor Hager.
Would we be able to? Once we package up the programs and overall promote the programs externally, or would we, I mean, how would we, yeah, how would we market it? Would this be a push pull?
Well, I mean, I think that's Hager, I guess what I would say is we promote it however we can. You know, we would promote it ourselves, we would have the EDC work on it, we would, you know, the chamber would, I'm sure, be interested in promoting that for local businesses. So we would just use whatever channels we could and be as comprehensive about it as we could.
That'd be great, and something to plan for as a requirement. I mean, this is clearly a lot of thought has been put into this, and be great if we could somehow do a campaign through the EDC or something.
I don't see any channels I would say no to, I guess is the bottom line.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like the, sorry, it's the mayor. I like the prioritization, that was stated. I like marketing this. I also appreciate that you kept it as broad as possible to allow you, staff and the EDC to kind of have a little bit of flexibility within the program to go and look at what makes sense. So I'm interested when we get to that point. I don't know that I have any input for a while, but I'm curious to see what the scoring criteria looks like. I think that'll be important, although we don't exactly have businesses like, you know, beating down our door at the level we would like yet. So I think that will come with time, but I like the idea as we start to move forward that we make sure that we look at the, once we get to that point where we need to start looking at the opportunities and saying, okay, this is a better for the city than this one, and then making objective decisions that way, clear and objective. But see, I want to sort of this.
Councilor Weber,
Oh, sorry, hold up. Oh, good, sorry, go.
my thought when I kind of tour the city a lot is perhaps the priority should be the current businesses. Because that's one thing I've noticed is I think they felt a little forgotten where the initial grants we gave went to the brand new businesses, which was fine, but we haven't had a pattern of giving the old businesses, as far as I know, significant number of grants. And to me, that would kind of be the warm fuzzy if we could say we're going to prioritize giving grants, because it's not like we have dozens and dozens of businesses. And perhaps we could have a proactive system where I don't think it's bad at all to let Tiberius help more, because you have a lot of things you're doing too and network, and actually go to the businesses. And rather than, I think sometimes we don't want them feeling they've just been told what they can't do. Let's go to the business and say, here would be 3 grants that you would potentially be eligible for, right? So a proactive approach to especially the old business, the current businesses, I guess is a better word, right? And just try to, I think for me, the goal would be to get out a significant number of grants fairly quickly, because I think that just creates this real warm, fuzzy forward momentum. So that would be something I think, but again, we'll talk about that at the URA. Yes.
So actually, I think now that I hear you say that out loud, I think that's actually something, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's something we want to send to EDC and let them run with, because there's 7 of them and 1 of you. The marketing, like the going after the businesses.
Yes,
And chamber and-
it was expressed at EDC. I haven't had the pleasure of attending the last 2 months. So I'm not the most up to date on their conversation, but they did discuss the importance of doing some outreach to the current businesses and getting proactive with our programs and responding to their needs.
Right, and my continuation with what I was saying though would be to consider maybe we'd use Tiberius a little bit more or something in conjunction with these other groups, just to keep it moving. Go ahead, sorry.
So one thing I want to remind council of is you all approved staff to go out and a bid process to find a URA economic consultant that would more directly visit with businesses, figure out new programs in addition to this. Like, I think what we're proposing to you all are short-term low-hanging fruit opportunities. But the economic consultant that we will ultimately hire to help with kind of the real business, how to grow the economy in the urban renewal district. They're the ones that are really gonna put the hard effort into, as you remember, last month, we kind of walked through what a scope of work might look like and what budget by task might look like. And that was a big part of what the consultant that gets hired does, so I just want to keep it out there that that's coming as well.
This is more of a phase one, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, Mary, that's
That's
correct.
very good. Please, I'm ready.
Council Reddy here. How, this is to go along into the future, not right now, but is to, how will we measure success of these grants? And what happens if a funded project fails or doesn't deliver expected outcomes? And I know we probably have some of that with the food one, but we've had one not go so great. And so it's, are we measuring that, or are we keeping track of that? And how can we help these businesses succeed in the future?
Thank you for the question, Councilor Redding. It's an important matter. I want to start off with an emphasis that all of these grants, including the current tenant improvement grant, are designed to put physical improvements in place that don't leave the city. As unfortunate as it is, and we never want to see a business fail, but these grants are designed so that if a business does fail, the improvement stays here in North Plains, and the hope is that another business can take advantage of that improvement and get an easier start. Like I said, we never want to see a business go out of North Plains. We want to have as many healthy businesses here as we can. But we do try to do some proofing to avoid losing our investment in the city. That said, we haven't had proactive data tracking systematically with our tenant improvement grant. We've connected with the businesses, we stay in touch with them. We have a great feel for those businesses, but we have not been keeping hard data, to my knowledge, on those programs at the moment.
No, that's correct. We don't have like policy criteria where we measure in a specific way. But in follow-up, what I will say is that with the loss of Melly's, the urban renewal grant that helped put the kitchen improvements in place, the property owner was able to release that space to a Chinese dumpling restaurant. And so that happened extremely quickly because brand new kitchen improvements were there. So that kind of speaks to the point Rowan made. The other thing I will say is that we've really only had this first urban renewal grant program so far. And in working with the property owner on two of the businesses in the first building, by getting the two grants for the two businesses in the first building, he was able to get his second building financed. Because he proved that a small commercial, multi-tenant commercial brand new building in North Plains can work. And that kind of speaks to, in the PowerPoint presentation, Rowan, it's in a small community, still growing, but in a small community, lack of familiarity or perceived small size as a market is a lending risk. It's a business risk. And so he was able to, we helped him get over the hump in getting the second building financed. So that was a positive as well. But we haven't kind of, tracked a very specific set of numbers or anything.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Councilor Hagedorn here. I think an opportunity as we're evolving this conversation of the program is, gosh, I just lost my train of thought here. Well, how do we engage with other cities and how they, and to learn about how they're measuring the success criteria for their programs? I mean, Forest Grove has a pretty robust system here. And then another kind of vector of consideration here would be overall satisfaction of the experience of participating in the program. Sometimes the business climate ebbs and flows, with cycles. And so sometimes I think that would be important to understand how they're feeling, and as well, the effectiveness of these programs at their fingertips. Are they aware of them, et cetera, et cetera? Things to consider.
Thank you for the comment.
Oh, do you have an answer, or did you want to answer? I have a question after, or a comment after, so.
So I think it would, no comment needed.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if you were. So I think the other thing I've been curious, and again, I'm not sure if this is how we would track this yet, but I'm just thinking for a minute. It'd be nice to get demographic data, more, not so much on well, we normally think of demographics, but like what types of businesses are we bringing in? Because we're doing tax increment financing, what is the raise in tax rates? Because with TDF&R, and other taxing districts, we're gonna have to go every so often have a conversation about why we're gonna need to re-up the URA. So are we actually increasing the tax base? Obviously, there's the obvious one of, are we bringing in more business? But then are we bringing business that brings money into the city? I don't know how to word that, but you know what I mean, right?
An improvement in property
Yes,
value.
yeah. I guess that would be it. Well, but also what ancillary benefits do we get? Like, are they, if they come in, and I'm just gonna throw out the road because she's here. If they go to the road, then do they go next door to Pilgrims? Or, you know, like, are we getting, ancillary benefits? That's the term I'm trying to think of. So where people come and spend in more than one business. If we could, I know this is hard to track. I'm just trying to think about, these are the things I would love to be able to see if I had a wish list. Could we track the ancillary benefits from the program? If we give one business, does it impact multiple businesses with one grant? And I don't know if that's possible.
The answer is yes.
Oh, okay.
It is possible. This becomes a resource availability and capacity problem.
Great.
As is with all small cities, and small programs. There are cities out there using to great effect data tracking and AI, and advanced spatial data. The things that you see at conferences nowadays, for data and tracking, and program analysis are incredible. Right sizing that for our city and our URA and our plan goals is going to be the balance that staff will have to analyze and figure out what we can reasonably accomplish. And that might involve also working with other community organizations like the chamber to add that capacity in the future, or utilizing our EDC to add that capacity as well. When staff is crunching the numbers in a spreadsheet, those folks can be going out and doing the connecting with the community and business owners. That's definitely something that will be top of mind as we form these programs. I think it's an invaluable resource for us to have as much data as we can feasibly collect. So we will be thinking about that in many ways. And as Councilor Hagedorn mentioned, we'll be wanting to go to other cities and looking at their programs and asking their staff, what criteria did you use? How did you track this? What worked for you? And then being able to come back and right size that for North Plains.
Council, oh, sorry, yes.
Counselor Weber, another thought would be to see if we could network a little better with some developers. You know, in my walks around town, I've met a few. I don't know if you ever met the guy that redid that old building behind the post office that was in shambles. Wonderful guy, and network with them and find out what brought you here. What can we do to help you develop something else? What would it take? What about if we had a grant for you? I think that networking thing, I've met a few developers, maybe there could be a subcommittee we would meet with. I don't know if anybody's met with Bertoni that's trying to lease out his building, right? How do we help you do that? What are our options? Bring in somebody else. You know, I think just find the energy we already have in our city, see if we can build on it. I think Tiberius could be a big help too, because there's so many, you know, we have a small staff, you have limitations on your time. We just have to figure out a way. Anyway, I think there is some real smart folks out there. How do we bring them on board? Like this whole creativity for downtown, who's gonna get that moving?
I'll echo what Bill said. This is phase one, stage one, and things like reaching out to developers and coordinating different focus groups is something that as we bring on a consultant and go into sort of phase 2, 3, will be really informative to us honing these programs.
One real quick reminder to council, we can't make any decisions in this meeting, so nobody's done that. I'm just giving us a heads up. But if there's stuff you want to refer to the URA board meeting this evening, that is the appropriate way to make decisions. Just reminding everyone, including myself, so we don't accidentally say the wrong thing. Anybody else? Comments, thoughts?
Counselor Weber, the other thing that's very confusing that you brought up, which is very helpful, is we're a board when we make decisions on the URA. Now we're gathering kind of as a council at a work session. So it just further brings up the reason why we don't do anything here, because otherwise it's confusing.
Okay, so what is the council's, oh, sorry, Bill, please.
Council Warland.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Councilor Warren.
Thank you. I know a vote is coming or something, it seems like, or maybe not a vote, but thoughts. But before we do that, I would just like to ask, can we obtain these kind of decks within the agenda so that we can have a chance to review it and provide thoughtful questions? Not that they weren't, but not everybody has enough time to read through and gather and listen at the same time. So it'd be nice if this kind of stuff was actually in the agenda or emailed to us if it isn't an agenda item. Can we do that?
I'm gonna defer to Bill or Lori because I don't know the rules here.
It's a great question, thank you. Honestly, it varies on what the topic is. This one we probably could have gotten to you before, because Roland's done a lot of heavy lifting, and we added some things between now and today. But when we're able to, we will.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fair. Thank you. Good question, Council.
Fair enough, thank you.
Okay, so what would council like to direct staff to do next? We're not making a decision, we're just directing staff.
Run fast. This is good work. This is really good work.
That kind of consensus, everybody's wants to see more of this.
I think we somehow, Counselor Weber, we'd have maybe the URA board take this up, but I think it's obviously wonderful, and then the URA board can formally say, go with it. And then it's done in that official format. Obviously, we don't do that now, but that would
Yes, that's what I'm getting at.
formalize it at the board view.
Yes, you're saying send it to the board.
Yeah, it's very well done, which is done.
Okay. Councilor Ford, send it to the board. Councilor Warrington, are you sending it to the board?
Agree.
Okay, I think that's consensus. Ron, great work, Bill. Appreciate this. Very helpful. I particularly like the flexibility that it gives us and the multiple programs. I'd like to see all of the above, but I know we are constrained, so we'll figure out what makes sense in what order. But anything that brings in more business is awesome. So with that, because I just messed up my watch. We are adjourned at 6:39.